Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajgopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys. Hey everyone, it's PVSB. We're here at Amazon Port at the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity. And while I'm normally joined by my co-host Sri, we have a special co-host today. He is AJ Sharma, the Vice President of E-commerce and Omnichannel at Bayer Consumer Health here in North America. Hey AJ, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me as one of the CPG guys.
Oh, well, I mean, you've been a guest. We might as well get in. By the way, I think this actually counts as another episode towards the coveted 5-timer varsity jacket that's on the horizon.
One of the reasons why I'm here.
I figured it would be. That's good. So let's get on with our interview. We've got a really great guest here today. Joining us for this conversation is Anastasia Leng. She is the founder and CEO of CreativeX. Anastasia, how you doing?
It's Cannes. It's sunny. I can see water. Not here, but saw water all day today, so I feel good.
I like that. Yeah, I managed to get up at 6 a.m., take a walk down to the port, take my necessary selfie in front of the marina with lots of boats, shot the video for my daughter to wake her up back in Connecticut. So,
have you gone in the water?
I have not touched the water yet.
Okay.
It's on the list.
It's on the bucket list.
It's on the bucket list. Just coming to Cannes is my first Cannes, actually.
Is it your first Cannes?
It is, so I'm very excited about this.
Oh, well, I'm keen to hear your reflections.
So far, so good. We'll let you know. It's only day one. So much more to happen. All right, so we've got a bunch of questions for you. Really excited. So your career, you started at undergraduate at UPenn, am I understanding? Very good. All the way to Google, and now to a startup founder at Hatch.co, and now you're the founder and CEO of CreativeX. Why don't you take us through your background, and particularly I'd love to glean any pivotal moments that people who might want to follow in that entrepreneurial footstep will draw some value out of as they think about this.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at my career, I think I'm your sort of standard underconfident overachiever. My family moved to the U.S. when I was 15. I did not speak a word of English and sort of just had to make do with it. So I went to Penn, triple majored, sold advertising.
Couldn't get a quadruple major?
I was the first person at Penn to get a triple major.
Okay.
So don't make me feel bad, Peter. That was already a record for Penn. Probably not a record anymore. But sold advertising through college to sort of make ends meet, and then got a job at Google. And I remember when Google gave me the offer, I thought, what could you possibly need people like me for? But the offer letter was so good, I had to take it. And spent about 5-6 years at Google. Worked on every ad tech and analytics product Google ever had. And honestly, one day I just woke up and I was bored. And I thought, I am too young to be this bored. And I left and started an e-commerce company called Hatch. Couldn't raise a dime. So that e-commerce company really struggled for a bit, but eventually all of my former managers at Google ended up giving me a little bit of money to get the company off the ground.
What a great way to get the seed money needed to start a business. People who know you, who trust you.
Yes.
That they said this person is worth investing in because she delivered when she was at Google, and we think she can deliver in starting her own business.
It's a double-edged sword, though, because there's nothing like taking people from money, to make you feel the weight and responsibility of that money. So there I was with this fledgling startup on my hands with money that I'd taken from pretty much the people that I professionally respected the most, and the company wasn't working. And I had to figure out how to make it work. And so out of the ashes of this e-commerce company, we started building a bunch of tools that eventually became CreativeX. So the lesson in all of this is when your back is against the wall, you do some crazy, wonderful things. And I think the only theme I found in being an entrepreneur is perseverance. If you want it, just go after it. I certainly did not think I would be here, but eventually I just followed what was interesting, and here I am.
Now we're at Cannes. We're at Creative's most captivating conference in the world. What have you seen that excites you about the conference? Sorry, I'm going to repeat that one, right? We are Creative's most important gathering in the world. So far, what have you seen that captivates the mind as a consumer of content? And I know we're just at the beginning of Cannes, but what are you most excited about as you head into the week?
So, I'm a psychology major, so I'm observing less as a consumer of content and more as an observer of our industry. And that's where I think, this is my third Cannes, there's some really interesting patterns. I think as an industry, we haven't really figured out what is Cannes for. Is it to celebrate? Is it to inspire? Is it to teach? I think the last 2 years, we actually got Cannes quite wrong. wrong. We were talking about things that were completely disconnected from what marketers every day were struggling with. And then again, first day, but looking at the agenda, looking at the topics, I think we finally hit the nail on the head in terms of the things that are being discussed are not metaverse things that might apply 5 to 10 years from now. They're actual things that marketers are struggling with today. And I think it's the right level of both zooming in and zooming out that I'm hoping will lead to practical, actionable things that you can take away from this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's my first time at Cannes as well. Having looked at the agenda, it's probably the most end-to-end, call it, content that I've sort of seen that controls parts of the ecosystem rather than individual functions.
That's right. I think we tend to get so distracted by the shiny thing. And there is value to that, right? Zooming out, seeing the shiny stuff. But I think this year we've really nailed it in terms of, I mean, Gen AI makes everything exciting. But you've got the AI stuff, but also in a way that can help people really think about, well, what can I do with this when I go back to the office on Monday?
I just realized your first time, my first time, Shri. 3 of us, and that equals her. She's been here 3 times. So
look at that.
Got triple the wisdom. Triple the wisdom right here.
Exactly. All right. I want to talk a little bit about data and its impact on content for brands as they're building creative. What role does it play in both the creation of the content and then the data that is derived from the content that is created and disseminated?
So data has always played some role in content creation, right? We've relied on panels and focus groups in the past, and we did a little bit of TV measurement and some general attribution. And that was kind of the robustness of the TV model. But the problem with that model is it just didn't scale to digital. So as we moved on to this, insert whatever buzzword you want, omni-channel, fragmented media ecosystem, we just found that those old ways of doing things couldn't necessarily keep up. So data's always been there, but that connectivity between past ways of doing things and current ways of doing things broke. Today, what we're finding is that as marketers are having to make decisions about all their content, which is no longer hundreds of ads, it's millions of ads, how do you actually embed data into that whole process? The tools we've had to date have been like having a stethoscope when you really need an x-ray. Yeah. And so what we're really thinking about is how do you really bring that x-ray-like technology to every single creative? So for example, if your CMO, right, AJ, I'm going to ask you, if your CMO said, hey, AJ, what are some of the creative decisions that are working for us? Is that a conversation that would scare you or energize you?
It would energize me.
Fantastic. Well, you guys are users of CreativeX. So we're providing, but for a lot of people, they would be scared because traditionally, content has been a black box. It has been subjective. And now the technology that we have has enabled us to bring some data into it that allows us to measure. The kinds of things we can measure, historically everyone talks about performance and impact, right? And don't get me wrong, that's there. But I think the other thing we rarely talk about is the ability to measure to what extent your creative execution actually mirrors the things you as a brand want to project. How do you want to show up? How are all of your partners telling the story that demonstrates that they're marching to the beat of the same drum, right? Are you projecting, are you showing up the way you think you're showing up? And that's another angle of how we can use creative data to start to answer some of these questions.
It's a really important point because I think it becomes around continuous improvement.
Yes.
There's so many different touch points to make those marginal improvements that ultimately will make a difference.
That's right. And you can do it across every piece of content now, right? And so all of a sudden you really have a full view into everything that's going on.
So take us through your own experience as a CEO of CreativeX and what have you seen evolve over the last few years and decade? Obviously, you throw in COVID into that.
Some recessions.
That's the wild card.
Yeah. Love to hear about that.
Yeah, being a CEO is the best worst job in the world, and it has been. You're right. We've lived through COVID. We've lived through a financial recession. I think if I look back to when CreativeX was started, that serendipitous moment where we turned the fledgling e-commerce company into creative measurement tools, people didn't really believe that data should exist in the creative process, and we actually saw people putting themselves in one of two camps. I'm either the creative person, and therefore it is all about my judgment, my intuition, my impression, or I'm the data person, and there is absolutely no bridge of connectivity.
This reminds me of the conversation back in the 90s when I went to business school where people said, oh, I don't know finance, I'm going to go be a marketing person. If you think you can get away with doing marketing without understanding numbers, you got another thing coming. It's the same way with content, isn't it, relative to data?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember those very first conversations, because the way CreativeX started is we built a technology and then we went around and we sort of said, hey, we have this tech. Is there anything, like, what are some ideas of ways you could use it? And we would literally get kicked out of meetings when we were talking to creative folks saying, what you're doing is blasphemous. We don't believe it should be there. Now, of course, this was about 10 years ago, right? The industry has shifted a lot since then. So now what we are seeing is the view that how can you be data-driven while embracing and respecting creativity? How can you bring creativity into the data process using data as an amplifier? So we're really seeing kind of the fusion of these two things as being acceptable. Now, the other big accelerant has been that as Gen AI has become a buzzword, I think people are recognizing that if they want to move off generic Gen AI instances, they have to have their own creative database. Otherwise, you're just going to get what the other guy's getting, right? And this desire to dig deeper and really understand every single creative you're making so you can then fuel that data into your LLMs, into your Gen AI instances, I think is really accelerating this bridging between the creative and the data side.
Brilliant. So, Anastasia, artificial intelligence is all around us. It's the buzzword at just about every conference that we go to these days. But it has many functions because people have been using machine learning components of it forever. How is AI changing what creative excellence means? And I guess what I mean by that is, will generative AI in particular, right, allow auto creation of campaigns? And is that a good thing? Like, where's the human element of this?
Yes. So we'll start out by saying that I recently read something about the predictions people made when the internet was first starting to kind of come of age, enter the mainstream. And 90% of those predictions were categorically wrong, right? And so I will pontificate here, but knowing that obviously this is all sort of developing. My personal view is that AI, generative AI, will not change what creative excellence means. Creative excellence has always meant the same thing, right? We want to make great content that really cuts through with our consumers and that gets them to change or maintain some sort of behavior. I don't think the definition of creative excellence will ever change, but how it is achieved will change, both from an operational point of view and a measurement point of view. We're seeing this already. Brands are embracing, slowly, but it's starting to embrace Gen AI tools for content creation. They're then using other AI tools like us to actually control that Gen AI creation, making sure that, for example, we just announced an integration with Pencil. Pencil is a Gen AI tool for brands and creates content for them. But how do you know that what the Gen AI tool spat out is actually in line with Bayer's creative best practices, Bayer's learnings? We actually sit on top as an AI tool, on top of the generative AI, making sure that every ad that comes out is ranked for the things that matter to Bayer, right? So again, the definition of creative excellence, and I'd love to hear your views on this, AJ. My views are not going to change, but technology is going to be in all these bottlenecks, helping it run a lot smoother.
Yeah, and there's probably a couple of aspects to that. There's a process element in terms of getting it done more efficiently, and then there's the actual creative part, which is quite exciting. And I think, what Gen AI can bring is, elements for that continuous improvement that we discussed a lot faster.
That's right.
It can respond a lot faster to hopefully capitalize on some of those trends, which historically have taken longer from a creative point of view, but then also from an execution point of view. And I think that's what I'm most excited about.
I think you hit the nail on the head where when we think about any new tool, we talk about speed, we talk about cost, we talk about quality. I think right now the stage that we're in is Gen AI and AI generally is helping with speed and it's helping with cost. Quality is still a question mark. I think it'll get there, but let's be very clear right now, the value and the benefit is speed and cost.
And finally, important for all our audience out there, touching all aspects of creative all the time, Anastasia, what is your advice to building brands in a digital age?
My advice for building brands in a digital age. I think increasingly brands are focused so much, and this is rich coming from a person in the creative space, but brands focus so much on how they show up and not necessarily on every single consumer touch point where folks still take away some impression of how you engage with your brand. I think we've lost some connectivity around brand is not just what you say, it's also what you do. So how you think about connecting your brand vision across all these touch points is an element that I think has been lost and a lot of folks are trying to make it come back. One of my favorite fun tricks that I've learned from LLMs is there's a great talk by a guy named Tim Huang, and he talks about the fact that hallucinations in your LLM models are actually a feature, not a bug. One of the things he says is if you go in and ask an LLM, hey, what do people think about my brand? It might not, or what are the associations between me and my brand? It might not get all the things right, but the things this hallucinates are actually because probabilistically, those are the things that are likely to be associated with your brand. So how we think about brand building more holistically and not just the things we show is increasingly, I think, going to be a recipe for making stronger, more resilient brands.
And following on from that point, so in a digital creator economy, everybody is doing creative. How do large brands respond to that, and how do agencies respond to help support those brands?
We've seen a relatively significant shift from brand-led content into creator-led content as brands look for authenticity, which they're trying to get from engaging these micro communities. The tension point there is how do you get that authenticity while still getting that performance? Oftentimes, the creator content that is made, while it has that authenticity, is not set up to work in a paid media environment. And this is where some of the tension comes in, because the footprint or the shelf life of that content is less than it could be because it's not created in a way that scales to advertising. So what we're seeing is, and we've published some research with Meta on this, that actually if you put creator content into the container that has historically been reserved for ads, it will actually do exceptionally well. So even within the paid media environment, creator content doesn't play by different rules. But the media shift here to creator content from a production point of view is very real.
Yeah, which is really important to CPG brands as well, because it totally changes capability, how you organize internally, but then also the cost modeling and budgeting. Because, one thing is around how do we drive efficiencies and cost improvements without impacting the quality of output. But at the same time, as it's changing so frequently, how do CPGs then self-organize in a way that makes sense to respond to those trends?
Yes, so the thing I'm really thinking about now is this tension that I think will inevitably come to the surface between the authenticity you look for from the creator-led communities versus the scalability and inauthenticity you get from the Gen AI tools, and how people will navigate that seeming paradox, I think is going to be fascinating to watch.
All right, Anastasia, our last question for today. We're obviously here at Amazon Port at Cannes Lions, and Amazon is most notably and arguably the most important retail media network for CPG brand advertisers, both endemic and non-endemic. From your perspective, what role does creative play in powering retail media to convert consumers and drive that engagement that brands are so desirous of?
I think the rise of retail media is really exciting for a lot of our brand partners, right? We're seeing media shift pretty substantially into retail media environments, partially because, or maybe largely because, you are very close to the point of sale, right? So it's the closest we've gotten to the point of sale in the digital environment for a really long time, which is rich for creative attribution, rich for media attribution, et cetera. Taking a step back from it, what we're thinking about, given that we have access to, for the brands that we work with, like Bayer, we have access to every bit of content across every platform, is how do we start to show the creative journey that people take? And really think about what is the message you show when you're clearly in that brand awareness stage, that consideration stage, and finally that purchase stage, and how you weave that story together. I think historically, the differentiation has been very weak, i.e. we put a call to action when it's the final mile versus we just tell you about the brand up front. But I think people are going to get substantially more sophisticated in how you connect that journey because you have such rich measurement at the retail media side. So I'm very excited.
All right. Well, listen, Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us today on the CPG Guy podcast. I hope you have a terrific Cannes Lions Festival, your third one so far. Can't wait to see how this develops over the coming days.
I hope you enjoy your first Cannes. Get that swim in.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Anastasia. And thanks for having me as a guest.
Great to have you, AJ. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the CPG Guys podcast. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.